You never know where grace will find you. It doesn't always come in a grand cathedral, with stained glass throwing colors across ancient stone. Sometimes it comes in the most ordinary of places. A kitchen with a leaky faucet. A living room with a worn-out sofa. A small, struggling backyard garden in a quiet Denver suburb. And sometimes it doesn't come to the theologian or the saint or the one who has all the answers. Sometimes it comes to the smallest among us. A child who has known more loss than love. A little boy with no words for the world, until he found the words for heaven. This is the story of Ethan and the lady in blue. My name is Anna, and today I want to share with you a story that isn't mine, but one that was entrusted to a family I came to know. A story of a miracle, or really a cascade of miracles, that began not with a clap of thunder, but with a whisper in a garden. It's a story that asks us to listen, not just with our ears, but with that quiet, often forgotten space within us where hope still flickers. But before we step into that garden, I need to ask you something. Where are you right now as you listen? What city, what town are you in? I want you to pause this video for just a moment. I'm serious. Pause it. Look right into the camera lens and imagine this is a window, and I'm looking right back at you. I want you to type one word in the comments below. Hope. Just that one word. And then tell me your city. Let's build a cathedral of comments today. A global testament that hope is alive, from Denver to Delhi, from Manila to Munich. Let's create a chain of faith across the globe. Go on, I'll wait. Welcome back. Seeing those names, those places, already makes this feel sacred. Thank you. You are part of this story now. This story belongs to the Thompson family. Michael and Claire. Good, hard-working people who carried a quiet grief within them. They had tried for years to have a child, facing the heartbreak of infertility, the silent dinners, the room that stayed a guest room. They felt a call, a pull, to love a child who already needed it. And so, they entered the labyrinth of adoption. The paperwork felt endless, a mountain of questions and hopes and fears. And then they were matched with a little boy. His name was Ethan. He was 3 years old, with eyes the color of a stormy sea and a silence that was profound. His early life had been unstable, marked by transitions no child should have to navigate. He didn't speak. Not a word. The therapists called it selective mutism, likely trauma-induced. He communicated in gestures, in nods, sometimes in tears that had no sound. Michael and Claire brought him home to their little house on Aspen Drive, their hearts brimming with a love so fierce it terrified them. They loved him and they ached for him. They longed to hear his voice, to know what he dreamed of, what he feared, what made him happy. They prayed every night, not for a miracle, just for a word. Just for a mama or dada. Just to know he felt safe. Their backyard was Claire's sanctuary. A small, rectangular plot fighting the Colorado clay. She grew roses mostly. She said the act of digging in the earth, of tending to something beautiful and fragile, was her prayer. There was a particular corner, near an old kind of lopsided bench, where a single robust rose bush grew. It hadn't bloomed the year Ethan arrived. Claire almost pruned it back, thinking it was done. But something stayed her hand. It was a Saturday morning in late spring. Michael was making pancakes. Claire was weeding. Ethan was sitting on the grass, methodically stacking smooth stones he'd collected. The air was clean and cool, the sky that impossible Denver blue. And then Claire heard it. A sound so foreign, so unexpected, that at first she thought it was a bird she'd never heard before. Little voice. Soft, hesitant but clear. He was looking toward the corner of the garden, the one with the barren rose bush. And he was speaking. Claire froze, her hands deep in the soil. She didn't dare breathe. She strained to hear. He said, "You're pretty." Pause as if listening. A slight tilt of his head. "Your dress is blue." Claire's heart stopped. There was no one there. Just the fence, the bench, the rose bush. Ethan gave a small, solemn nod. "Okay," he whispered. Then he picked up a stone and held it out, offering it to the empty air. Tears sprang to Claire's eyes instantly. Not just because he was speaking. Her mind couldn't even process that miracle yet, but because of the content. The tenderness in his little voice. The engagement. He was having a conversation. She didn't rush to him. She didn't cry out. A deep, instinctive reverence washed over her. She simply watched, her tears making warm tracks down her dusty cheeks. For 10 minutes, Ethan sat and murmured. Claire only caught fragments. "My new mom. Pancakes sometimes. The stones are smooth. Do you like roses?" He listened intently. His eyes focused on a point just above the rose bush. He would nod or smile a tiny private smile. When he finally stood up, brushed off his pants, and walked back to the patio door as if nothing had happened, Claire was left trembling on her knees. That night, after they put Ethan to bed, he had not spoken again, Claire told Michael. She recounted every word, every gesture. Michael, a pragmatic man, an engineer, ran through the logical explanations. An imaginary friend. A breakthrough from therapy. A delayed cognitive leap. But Claire shook her head. "You didn't see his face, Michael. You didn't hear the tone. It wasn't make-believe. It was intimate. It was real to him." "And the blue dress?" Michael asked, his voice quiet. "I didn't mention a blue dress," Claire whispered. They fell into a silence, heavy and charged. The next day, Sunday, they went to Mass as usual. The reading was from the Gospel of Luke. The priest read the words of the angel Gabriel. "Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with you." And then, the words describing Mary's visit to Elizabeth. Claire's hand found Michael's. She wasn't thinking of the Annunciation. She was thinking of a visitation. In a garden. To little boy. Ethan's conversations became a daily ritual. Every morning after breakfast, he would go to the garden corner. He would sit, sometimes cross-legged, sometimes kneeling, and he would talk. Claire started discreetly writing down what she could hear from the kitchen window. Day by day, a portrait of the visitor emerged from Ethan's simple reports. "She smiles a lot. She says her son is my friend. She likes it when we're kind. She says the roses will bloom for Mama. She says not to be scared of the dark. She's there." One afternoon, Ethan came in from the garden, walked straight up to Claire, who was folding laundry, and took her hand. He looked up at her with those solemn eyes. "She has a new name for you," he said, his voice clear as a bell. Claire knelt down. "She does. What is it?" "Tender heart," Ethan said. And then he laid his head on her shoulder. Claire wept. It was a name that resonated in the deepest part of her soul. It spoke to her yearning, her compassion, her sometimes overwhelming love for this child. How could a 3-year-old, a traumatized, silent 3-year-old, conjure such a perfect, healing name? This was the first of what the family would later call the 5 miracles. The miracle of the word. Ethan began to speak not just in the garden, but everywhere. He started talking to Michael and Claire. His vocabulary was startling, often using words and concepts far beyond his age. He spoke of love, of forgiveness, of a light that holds you. The therapists were astounded. There was no clinical explanation for such a rapid, profound, and holistic unlocking of speech. It was as if a dam had broken, and a river of living water was flowing out of him. The second miracle was the miracle of the scent. It happened on an evening when Michael was particularly stressed about work. He was sitting at the kitchen table, head in his hands. Ethan walked over, climbed into the chair beside him, and patted his arm. "She's here," he said simply. Michael, tired and skeptical, sighed. "Where, buddy?" "Right now," Ethan said, pointing to the space beside the refrigerator. And then Michael smelled it. A fragrance so distinct, so beautiful it cut through his anxiety. It was the smell of roses. Not perfume, not air freshener. The rich, deep, living scent of 1,000 roses in full bloom. It filled the kitchen. He looked at Claire, her eyes wide. They checked the windows. Nothing. No flowers inside. The garden roses were still stubbornly budless. The scent lingered for about a minute, a palpable wave of peace, and then faded away. In its wake, Michael's anxiety was gone. Not managed, not pushed down, gone. Replaced by a certainty that things would be okay. He looked at his son, and for the first time, he allowed himself to truly believe. The third miracle was the miracle of the bloom. It was the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, December 12th. Denver was under a blanket of snow, temperatures well below freezing. Claire, looking out at the bleak, white-covered garden, felt a pang for her roses. She thought of the rose bush in the corner, still bare. Ethan had been talking about the ladies' special day. That morning, he insisted they all go into the backyard. They bundled up, stepping out into the crisp, icy air. Ethan led them to the corner. And there, defying every law of botany and climate, the barren rose bush was covered in blooms. Dozens of them. The most perfect velvety red roses anyone had ever seen, their petals unfurled, dusted with a delicate layer of frost that glittered like diamonds in the winter sun. They were not frozen. They were alive, vibrant, emitting that same supernatural rose scent. It was a sign so bold, so impossible, that it could not be dismissed. Claire and Michael fell to their knees in the snow, weeping. Ethan simply smiled, touching a petal gently. "She said she'd give you flowers." News, of course, began to seep out. First to their parish priest, Father James, a wise and cautious man. He listened for hours, examined the family with a pastoral eye, looked for signs of hysteria or deception. He found none. He found a profoundly loving family, a joyful, articulate child, and a story that hummed with authenticity. He advised prayer, discretion, and documenting everything. He didn't proclaim it a miracle. He simply said, "God is acting in your lives. Be attentive." But word travels. A neighbor saw the winter roses. A friend smelled the scent during a visit. Soon, their quiet home on Aspen Drive became a point of pilgrimage. People started coming, just standing outside the fence, praying. They left flowers, notes, rosaries hanging on the gatepost. The pressure was immense, overwhelming. And here is where the fourth miracle occurred. The miracle of the healing. A woman named Sarah, a neighbor from a few streets over, came to the gate. She was despairing. Her teenage son, David, was in the hospital, dying from a sudden aggressive illness. The doctors had given up hope. Sarah, not particularly religious but utterly desperate, had heard the stories. She stood at the Thompsons' gate, sobbing, begging Our Lady for her boy's life. Ethan, from his bedroom window, saw her. He turned to Claire. "Mama, the lady at the gate is so sad. Her boy is sick. The lady in blue says we need to give her something." "What should we give her, sweetheart?" Claire asked, her heart breaking. Ethan thought for a moment. "My stone. The smooth one from the first day." He fetched the stone, the very one he had offered to the invisible visitor in the garden. Claire, holding Ethan's hand, walked out to the gate. She didn't know what to say. She simply pressed the warm, smooth stone into Sarah's hand and repeated Ethan's words. "The lady in blue says to have hope. Pray." Sarah, clutching the stone as a lifeline, went back to the hospital. She sat by her son's bed, the stone in her palm, and she prayed like she had never prayed before. She pleaded. She bargained. She finally, in exhaustion, just repeated, "Mary, help me." The next morning, David's fever broke. His vital signs, which had been crashing, stabilized. Within 2 days, the doctors were calling it remarkable. Within a week, they were searching for a new medical term for inexplicable recovery. David was going to live. Sarah brought the stone back to the Thompsons, her story a torrent of joy and tears. The stone now sits in a simple glass box on their mantel, a testament not to magic, but to intercession. The fifth and final miracle was perhaps the most subtle, but for Michael and Claire, the most profound. The miracle of the unified heart. The strain of the attention, the fear of being labeled fanatics, the weight of being conduits for something so much bigger than themselves. It began to create tiny fissures in their marriage. They were snappy, tired, on edge. One evening, after a particularly difficult day with crowds outside, they had a bitter argument. It was about nothing and everything. Finances, safety, the future. They went to bed angry, a cold silence between them. In the middle of the night, they both awoke at the same instant. The room was filled, once again, with the unmistakable scent of roses. But this time it was different. Felt maternal, gentle but chiding. And in that shared moment, in that fragrant dark, all the anger melted away. They turned to each other simultaneously. "I'm sorry," Michael whispered. "I'm sorry too," Claire replied. They held each other, and Claire later said she felt an overwhelming, clear thought that was not her own. "Love one another as I have loved you. Your love is my sanctuary here." Their marriage was not just repaired in that moment. It was fortified, welded with a grace that made it stronger than ever before. They realized their home, their love, was the true garden where this grace was growing. The apparitions, the conversations, gradually ceased. Ethan, now a chatty, joyful 4-year-old, simply stopped going to the corner one day. When Claire asked him if the lady was still there, he shook his head. "She doesn't need to talk anymore. She's in our hearts now," she said, to remember. And what are they to remember? I asked Claire this when she shared this story with me. She said, "To remember that we are never alone. That love is the highest reality. That heaven is intimately close, especially in our suffering. And that sometimes, God sends a mother to whisper to the heart of a child, so the child can speak to the hearts of adults. The garden on Aspen Drive is still there. The rose bush blooms spectacularly every season, even in winter, though never again as shockingly as that first time. People still sometimes visit, pray by the gate. The Thompsons welcome them with gentle humility, but they guard their privacy, and more importantly, they guard Ethan's normal childhood. He's just a boy now, they say. A boy who once spoke with a lady, and in doing so, taught an entire community how to listen. This story is a creative dramatization inspired by countless stories of Marian devotion. It is a spiritual reflection, meant to inspire, to comfort, to strengthen faith. But isn't that what all miracles are? A dramatization of God's love in our ordinary world. A breaking through of a deeper reality. Maybe you have a garden in your life. A place of struggle, or loneliness, or waiting. Place that feels barren. Maybe you've been silent under the weight of your own pain. This story is for you. The lady in blue, the Mother of Mercy, she isn't only in Denver. She is in the garden of your heart. She is waiting to speak to the child within you, the part of you that is vulnerable, that needs love, that needs to hear a new name. Tender heart. Beloved. Forgiven. Hopeful. She might not come with roses you can see or scents you can smell. Her miracle might be a sudden peace in a moment of chaos. A spontaneous healing of a relationship you thought was broken. A long-buried wound finally beginning to close. A hope that rises, unbidden, in the dead of your winter. This is your invitation to listen. Go to your garden. Sit in the quiet. And just listen. Before I go, my dear friends, if this story resonated with you, if it sparked a memory of a grace in your own life, I have a few simple requests. First, I want you to subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. By joining this community, you're saying you believe in stories that matter, in mysteries that uplift. You won't miss our next journey into faith and wonder. Second, if you felt even a glimmer of hope today, share this video. Share it with someone who is in their own winter. Someone who needs to know they are not alone. Be the one who passes on the whisper of hope. Third, let's keep this conversation alive. Go down into the comments. I read every single one. Tell me about a moment in your life where you experienced a small miracle, a moment of grace, an answer to a prayer. Or just say hello and where you're watching from. Our community in the comments is a beautiful, prayerful place. And finally, if you want to take that next step in community, we have a WhatsApp channel and a Telegram channel. Links are in the description below. It's a peaceful, respectful space where we share daily inspirations, prayer requests, and support one another. It's about building a strong, global family under the mantle of Our Lady's care. We'd be honored to have you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Wherever you are, whatever your struggle, remember. Love is speaking. In the silence. In the garden. In the heart of a child. You just have to be still enough to hear it. May the Virgin Mary, our Mother of Tenderness, wrap you in her mantle of hope and peace. God bless you. I'll see you in the next video.